Good day, ma'am. By the way, I am Lorraine Reyes, the first reporter of Group 4. My topic is all about biodiversity and innovation to basics biodiversity. So this is my PowerPoint presentation. Biodiversity and innovation. Biological diversity has become one of the hot button environmental topics. There is a lot of news about endangered species, loss of biodiversity, and its causes. So, biological diversity refers to the variety of life forms, commonly expressed as the number of the species or the number of genetic types in an area. First is population. So population is a group of individuals of the same species living in the same area of interbreeding and sharing genetic information. So a species is all individuals that are capable of interbreeding. A species is made up of populations. There are 9 primary reasons. So the first is utilitarian, public service, ecological, moral, theological, aesthetic, recreational, spiritual, and last but not the least, creative. Population, the total number of living in our particular area in a particular time, is known as the population. The population is one of the important factors which helps to balance the environment. The population should in a balance with the means and resources. So the example, population is our 2.5 billion people living in our city, which is Davao. So the population there is 2.5 million people living. Next is utilitarian. Utilitarian means that a species or group of species provides a product that is of direct value to people, and also when the individuals are deciding what to do for themselves alone, they considered only their own utility. So utilitarian means that based on my idea, the morally correct course of action is that one that produces benefit for the greatest number of people. Example is, if you are choosing ice cream for yourself, the utilitarian view is that you should choose the flavor that will you give the most pleasure. So next is the public service. Public service means that nature and diversity provide some service, such as taking up carbon dioxide or pollinating flowers that are essential or valuable to human life and would be expensive or impossible to do ourselves. So public service is service intended to serve all members of our community. So it is usually provided by the government to people living within its jurisdiction, either directly through the public sector, so or by financing provision or services. Example is police, air force, and paramedics like nurse. That is the example of public sector or public service. Next is ecological. Ecological refers to the fact that species have rules in their ecosystem. Some of these are necessary for the persistence of their ecosystems, perhaps even for the persistence of all life. So, scientific research tells us which species have such ecosystems rules. So, ecological is relating to concern with the relation of living organism to one another and to their physical surroundings. Examples is high high gas taxes can be defended on ecological grounds. So that is the example of ecological. So next is that moral. Moral is reason for valuing diversity is that species have a right to exist independent of their value people. So, moral is relates the way of dealing with an individual towards society, cultural norms, and social behaviors, or describes ways in which are considered correct and honest towards each member of our society. So, the example is that treat other as you want to be treated. So that is the example of moral. So next is theological. Theological reason is that some religions value nature and diversity, and a person who subscribes to that religion supports this belief. So theological. Theological is a systematic study of the nature of divine and more broadly of religious belief. So it occupies itself with the unique content of analyzing the supernatural but also deals with religious epistemology. So as and seek to answer the question of revelation. Theology is defined as a collection of assembled religious beliefs of our or is the study of our religion is about God, and also the the ano the belief. So especially the Christianity, Islam's, and etc. So the example is the study of God, or a God of or gods, and the truthfulness of religion in general. So next is aesthetic. So, aesthetic refers to the beauty of nature, including a variety of life. Aesthetic means a pleasant, positive, or artful appearance of a person or a thing. So, aesthetic also spelled aesthetics. So, the philosophical study of beauty and taste, it is at closely related to the philosophy of art. So, which is concerned with the nature of art and the concept in terms of which individual works of art are interpreted and evaluated. So, the aesthetic refers to the appearance of something, so particular in relation to its beauty. It is a term that predominantly refers to visual elements and can also be used as a noun to describe criteria by which an artistic movement or artist is defined, such as the postmodern aesthetic. So the example of aesthetic is the word aesthetic is to say that a particular car is beautiful. So the aesthetic there is a beautiful. So that is the aesthetic. So next is recreational is self-explanatory. So recreational self-explanatory is the people enjoy getting out into nature, not just because beautiful to look that, but because it provides us with helpful activities that we enjoy. So recreational is self-explanatory. So the 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 recreation is self-explanatory is something that can be understood easily without any further instruction or information. That is recreational self-explanatory. Next is spiritual. Can you say that spiritual describes the way contact with nature and its diversity often move people and uplifting often perceived as a religious experience. So spiritual is a broad concept with room for many perspectives. So, in general, it includes a sense of connection to something bigger than ourselves, and it typically involves a search or meaning in life. Example of spiritual is we will demonstrate our commitment to Christ through our practice of spiritual discipline, like mag magkuan mo mag-prayer mo sa simbahan, ana. So that is the spiritual disciplines, like Ten Commandments, gina 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 kuan ninyo gina ginahuna-huna kung unsa atong nasa Ten Commandments, tapos ang ginabuhat ninyo na mali, dili ninyo siya tumanon kung unsa inyong mga ginabuhat nga mali, kay makita man ninyo sa Ten Commandments na dito thou shall not kill, thou shall not ano yun, basta sa Ten Commandments. So if na 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 ano mo yun nagawa, dapat isipin mo yung Ten Commandments. So that is the spiritual. So next is Creative refers to the fact that artists, writers, and musicians find stimulation for their creativity in nature and its diversity. So, creative is the ability to come up with new and exciting ideas. That is the creativity. So, next is the basics of biodiversity. Biological diversity involves the following concept. Genetic diversity: the total number of genetic characteristics of the specific species, subspecies, or group of species. In terms of genetic engineering and our new understanding of DNA, this could mean the entire base pair sequences in DNA, the total number of genes active or not, or the total number of active genes. So that is the basic biodiversity. Habitat diversity: the different kinds of habitat in a given unit area. Species diversity, which in turn has three qualities. So the okay, species diversity has three qualities. So first is species richness. So species richness, the total number of species, So species richness, there are represent a measure of the variety of species based simply on account of the numbers of species in a particular sample. So the it can be expressed more usually as species richness per unit area, ranging from alpha referring to a certain site to gamma for our entire study of our level. So, example, each have more than 1,000 breeding species of birds, whereas the forests of Great Britain of the Eastern are home to fewer than 200. So, next is the species evenness, the relative abundance of species. So, the species evenness is that the refers how choose in numbers each species in an environment is mathematically it is defined as a diversity index, a measure of biodiversity which qualifies how equal the community is numerically. So if there are 40 foxes and 1,000 dogs, the community is not very event. So the example is we might have sampled two different fields for wildflowers. The sample from the first field consists of 300 daisies and 335 dandelions and 365 buttercups. That is the called species evidence. So last is species dominance. Species dominance. Sorry. Next is species dominance, the most abundant species. So, species dominance species that have high abundance relative to other species in a community and have proportionate effects on environmental conditions, community diversity, and or ecosystem function. So, dominant species called can be common, widespread, or restricted in their range are limited. So, the species dominance is limited. Limited. So, the example, tidal swamps in the tropics are usually dominated by species of mangrove called Rhizoporacea. Rhizoporacea is the limited. So this is the three species diversity. Once again, I am Lorraine Reyes, the first reporter of Group 4. Thank you for listening and watching. God bless.